promoting dialogue.
It's midday in Dakar and Banjul, 1 p.m. in Abuja. Many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world on wadr.org. Welcome to NewsLink. Here are the top stories. Malian army resumes counter-offensive operation against former rebels in Kidal after a deadly fight on Saturday. Political campaigning activities in Liberia end ahead of the November 14 rerun between incumbent George Weah and opposition leader Joseph Boakai. Massive protests rocked through Nigerian state where irregularities and violence flood off-cycle elections.
We saw a lot of non-state actors supported by the police cutting away materials from all the polling booths.
Burkina Faso receives 22 million euros in financing for a national dairy project to reduce poverty. Details of these stories and more coming up shortly.
Here is Abdullahi Hassan with NewsLink.
Many thanks for joining us and a warm welcome to our listeners in Gambia, Ghana, and Liberia. We begin in Mali, where the army has resumed counter-offensive operations against rebel groups in Kidal after a brief pause on Saturday. The clash was confirmed by military sources and elected officials in the northern region, which has witnessed a sharp deteriorating security situation following the withdrawal of the peacekeeping force, MINUSMA. Imo Edet has more.
The Malian army, FAMA, claims it was advancing towards the strategic northern town to secure the entire national territory when it came under attack on Saturday in Kidal. After a brief pause, fighting resumed on Sunday between the army and the rebels, and Anadolu reported citing a military officer. 1 soldier and 5 civilians were among the casualties. A local elected official also confirmed hearing loud sounds of rockets and army planes flying over Kidal, an area with some 25,000 residents. It was reported that rebels had cut telephone links on Friday in anticipation of an army offensive, following several days of airstrikes after violence surged in August. Recalled since seizing power in 2020, the junta vowed to recapture all lost territories, including Kidal, where several talks to reach a consensus between Bamako and the former rebels have failed. The 2015 peace agreement by signatories' armed groups are yet to be implemented. In the meantime, the control of MINUSMA bases being evacuated is currently at the center of the new conflict. The transitional authorities had in June requested the peacekeepers' departure for failing to end a crisis with its root in the 2012 uprising in the north.
Imo added with that report. The Gambia Armed Forces held its Remembrance Day on Sunday in the capital, Banjul. The day was set aside to remember the fallen and celebrate the living heroes of World Wars I and II. From Banjul, Sankule Janko completes the story.
The Gambia Armed Forces, in collaboration with the Gambian Legion and voluntary organizations, commemorated this year's Remembrance Day at the Makati Square in Banjul. The solemn occasion included a march past to remember the ultimate sacrifice of the fallen heroes of the World War I and II, and for the rest of mankind to live in peace and freedom. Speaking at this ceremony, the Chief of Defense Staff of the Gambia Armed Forces, Colonel General Mehmet Ocham, commended the Army's contribution to regional and global security.
Since the Gambia was a British colony, played a very significant part in it. But coming to the moment, we've also had soldiers who had participated in the recent past in wars in Liberia and various other conflicts.
All the war veterans of the Gambia have died, leaving behind widows and children. Babunjai, chairman of the War Veterans Family Association, speaks on the importance of the day and what it means to the families of the fallen heroes.
We are very much proud of what they have done because they have done wonders. So my father used to tell me that, when they were in the war, they encounter so many things. But when the Gambians are in the front line, they always identify them as heroes.
The Remembrance Day, observed annually on 11 November, is set aside to recall the end of First World War and hostilities at the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month of 1918, in accordance with the armistice signed. For NewsLink on West Africa Democracy Radio, I am Sankule Janko reporting from Banjul.
Here in Senegal, 35 opposition political parties have launched a new coalition almost 3 months ahead of the February 2024 presidential election. Known as the Front for Inclusiveness and Transparency in Elections, FITE, the platform denounces, and I quote, a backward slide in democracy under President Macky Sall's regime. This movement is calling on the country's political stakeholders to work towards the participation of all candidates in the presidential election. A Senegalese political analyst, Amadou Kamara, remarks on the potential of this opposition coalition.
This coalition, FITE, is a continuation of Yewwi Askan Wi, the former opposition coalition. But here's the difference is that it doesn't include Khalifa Sall of Taxawu Senegal and the Senegalese Democratic Party of Karim Wade, two major parties in Senegal. But I also think a coalition is measured by its action and its ability to mobilize citizens. That's why I think it is too early to draw any conclusion about its future. What is clear is that the opposition has noted numerous challenges and irregularities. This includes the election office refusal to hand over sponsorship from the leader of PASTEF, Ousmane Sonko, who has been placed under arrest, and the irregular appointment of new member of the Electoral Commission. I think if they deal with this question after, we can see how they will handle in the future.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. NewsLink continues.
In Liberia, political campaigns leading to the November 14 presidential runoff election between incumbent George Weah and main opposition leader Joseph Boakai ended on Sunday. But on the last day of campaigning, there were claims of attack and violence from both the ruling and opposition camps on members of their respective parties. Opposition leader Joseph Boakai had particularly accused the ruling establishment of instigating violence, an allegation the incumbent party denies. WADR's Darlington Pop and Morovia reports.
The campaigning activities ahead of tomorrow's runoff ended with accusation from both the ruling Coalition for Democratic Change and the main opposition Unity Party. Joseph Boakai, speaking during a news conference Sunday, alleged that the CDC supporters attacked opposition members in Nimba, leaving many injured.
We condemn this violation of our laws and call on the government of Liberia to act swiftly in bringing the violators to justice. Our international partners will take note of these gross breaches of international laws, and we intend to register position through the appropriate legal channel.
In response, Coalition for Democratic Change campaign spokesman Eugene Nangberala accused former warlord turned politician Prince Johnson, a major supporter of Boakai, of attacking ruling party supporters.
The minority will not be allowed to derail our democracy. And this is the attempt that they are trying. While CDC officials and supporters were engaged in regular campaign activity, thugs and bandits broke into Swahili and committed violence.
Amid the claims and counterclaims, President George Weah ended his campaigning activities Sunday by ensuring Liberians that the state will remain stronger and peaceful no matter what. The incumbent is appealing to citizens to unite and put aside their differences as the nation heads to the presidential runoff election on Tuesday, November 14, 2023. For NewsLink on West Africa Democracy Radio, I'm Darlington Pogba in Monrovia.
Now, in the aftermath of the off-cycle elections held on Saturday in 3 states in Nigeria, reactions continue to pour in regarding the result announced by the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC. Controversy surrounds the outcome of the Imo State election, where the incumbent governor, Hope Uzodinma, of the ruling All Progressives Congress Party, seeking re-election, was declared winner. WADR's Usman Umar in Abuja has more.
In Imo State, southeastern Nigeria, the candidates of the People's Democratic Party (PDP) and the Labour Party (LP) have separately accused security agencies of compromise in the electoral process.
We saw a lot of non-state actors supported by the police cutting away materials from all the polling booths.
Police and the military raped our democracy. It was like a coup by the security agencies of this country. It wasn't INEC. INEC, they were scared. They changed, they brought people from different states of this country. And when they came, they were willing to work. But when you see the security agents that are supposed to protect you in a state where they behead people like chicken, doing the bidding of government, what do? You play ball. Or they kill you.
Similar allegations of electoral fraud have been made in Kogi State by Murtala Ajaka, the candidate of the Social Democratic Party (SDP). Ajaka has accused the security agencies of masterminding electoral fraud and claiming that the results were predetermined even before the election commenced. Meanwhile, in Bayelsa State, located in the south-south region of Nigeria, protesters have taken over the streets to express their dissatisfaction with the conduct of the polls. They had besieged the road leading to INEC office in the state capital, Yenagoa, demanding accountability and transparency in the electoral process. Following reports of violence in parts of Kogi State, north-central Nigeria, the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has announced that fresh elections will be held in 59 polling units on November 18, 2023. It is hoped that this decision will help restore faith in the electoral process and allow for a fair and credible outcome in these affected areas. For NewsLink on West Africa Democracy Radio, Usman Umar reporting from Abuja.
More on electoral matters. Former United Nations envoy to West Africa and the Sahel region, Dr. Mohammed Ibn Chambers, has urged Ghanaians to be cautious of the divisive religious and ethnic sentiments of faiths in anticipation of the 2024 general elections. His call comes at a time when elements within the two major political parties in the country, the National Democratic Congress (NDC) and the National Patriotic Party (NPP), are having a go at each other over which religion their flag bearers belong to. Delivering a speech during Star Ghana Foundation's anniversary lecture on empowering citizens and enriching nation building, the former envoy emphasized that the criteria for selecting leaders should go beyond religious and ethnic factors.
Ghana, our motherland, is a country with great potential. Our journey towards sustainable development should be a collective endeavor. It is the coming together of government, civil society, private sector, and most importantly, of our citizens, our men, women, youth, and women, all of us together. It is a commitment to the betterment of our great nation. It is a collective responsibility that transcends political, ethnic, religious, or regional boundaries. Unfortunately, we are seeing rearing of some divisive tendencies in our society, which we must all guard against and be careful about, especially going towards 2024. And we know ourselves. When it comes to election year, all the demons come out. So please, let calm heads prevail. It's about choosing our leaders. Let us focus on their messages. What is it that they are telling us they can do for us? Let us make 2024 an issue-driven campaign. And then, as citizens, we examine and we decide which way to go without any need for heavily armed state actors, non-state actors. It's not a war. It's about going to choose our leaders.
Former United Nations envoy to West Africa and the Sahel region, Dr. Mohammed Ibn Chambers, speaking there. And just before the recap, Guillaume Soro, former president of the Ivorian Parliament, has announced the end of his exile. In a video shared on social networks on Sunday, the former prime minister and head of the Solidarity Generations and People's Movement, SGP, said he no longer wished to be a fugitive and wanted to return home to participate in reconciliation efforts. On an international arrest warrant issued by Côte d'Ivoire, the strong opposition of Ivorian President Alassane Ouattara has been living in exile in France since 2019. You are listening to NewsLink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM Dakar, Senegal, and around the world on WADR.org. Here's a reminder of our top stories. The Malian army resumes a counter-offensive operation against former rebels in Kidal after a deadly fight on Saturday. Political campaigning activities in Liberia end ahead of the November 14 rerun between incumbent George Weah and opposition leader Joseph Boakai. Massive protests rocked three Nigerian states where irregularities and violence flawed off-cycle elections. Still ahead in the news, Burkina Faso receives 22 million euros in financing for a national dairy project to reduce poverty. We also have a press review, guest interview, and a sports update. Please stay with us.
Fresh and breaking news all the time. Hear it first as the news breaks, only on West Africa Democracy Radio. NewsLink continues.
Remember, we are live on YouTube on WADR News. And there is some good news for Burkina Faso as the government has received a subsidy for the country's dairy farm development. It's signed on the sidelines of the Saudi Africa Summit in Riyadh. The fund by the Islamic Development Bank is estimated at 14 billion CFA francs or 22 million euros. San Donamendi reports.
The Burkinabe government received approval for the fund to effectively manage the dairy farming development project initiated by the interim president, Captain Ibrahim Traoré. According to the presidency, the signing of the agreement reinforces several development initiatives in the country but essentially relates to the financing of the second phase of the dairy project in the peri-urban locality of Ouagadougou. The project aims to contribute equitably to the development of food security and the reduction of poverty in Burkina Faso by improving the productivity of dairy farms, boosting the milk value chain, and structuring the collection and processing of milk on the targeted farms. The financial assistance from the Islamic Development Bank will additionally enable the authorities to purchase at least 500 high productivity animals, set up milk deliverers, develop 200 hectares for further cultivation, and construct a high-performance bovine reproduction unit. Burkina Faso says it plans the insemination of at least 15,000 cows as well as the construction of an industrial dairy equipped with high-temperature pasteurization and ultrafiltration. Near the completion of the Phase 2 project, the Sahelian government would have installed 20 centers for milk collection to structure the value chain.
San Donamendi reporting.
This is the newspaper review. Stay on top of the news. Get the most important stories with added insight and concise review.
This is the newspaper review.
Joining us on the press review segment this afternoon with the screaming and banner headlines from the Nigerian National Dailies is WADR's Usman Umar in Abuja, who says the forex market is in deep crisis.
Hello and welcome to the press review segment. Today we have the Business Day and the Daily Independent. The Daily Independent newspaper is leading with this story. Naira suffers pushback amidst fresh CBN rescue attempt. An expert is saying no economic manipulation will make Naira rise. Also, another writer say Nigeria must first fix fundamental issues to get a result. A lot has been happening in the forex in Nigeria. CBN has been putting a lot of measures in place to give Naira that bite against the dollar. It showed last week between Wednesday and Thursday to Friday as if those measures were going to work. Only by the weekend for the Naira to slump again, both at the official market and even the parallel market. As at last Saturday, Naira sold at around 1,200 Naira to $1. Quickly take a leave of that to now take a look at Business Day. The Business Day is leading with this story. NNPC failing to meet equity payment for Dangote refinery. We recall that in May this year, the 650,000 barrel per day refinery by Dangote was launched, and it was promised to become operational by December this year. In that process, the federal government entered into an agreement with Dangote to acquire 20% equity stake. This 20% equity was valued at $2.7 billion United States dollars, and the payment arrangement was structured in such a way that $1 billion will be in cash and $1 billion will be in crude oil supply, while the $700 million will be paid through dividends earned from the operations of the plant. But as of today, federal government has only been able to pay the $1 billion cash. The payment for the $1 billion worth of crude oil is yet to materialize, and therefore this is becoming an issue for the federal government, who stands the risk of losing the 20% equity stake in the Dangote refinery. But we hope that before the year runs out, because a lot of solutions to the crisis in the oil sector have been hinged on the operationality of this giant refinery by Aliko Dangote. And this is the much we have for you today on the press review segment. It's back to you in the studios.
Indeed, many thanks, Usman Umar.
Politics,
Analysis on major news,
social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
Our guest segment focuses on Senegal, with special emphasis on the formation of a new opposition political coalition by 35 parties almost 3 months ahead of the February 2024 presidential election. Known as the Front for Inclusiveness and Transparency in Elections, FITE, the platform denounces its perceived backward slide in democracy under President Macky Sall's regime. A Senegalese political analyst, Mamadou Cho, is our guest. He comments...
It is very usual in Senegalese politics to set up this kind of front going nearly into the election. I mean, to fight for election transparency and things like that. We did have this kind of front in 2000 for the first change in power in 2012. And going to next year election, this new front is here to do the same job, because the opposition, most of the leaders of the opposition doubt that going to this election, they fear that they won't be as transparent as they want. That's why they decided to set up this kind of front.
One notable thing also is the fact that this new platform has come to life without the presence of two major opposition political figures, that is Karim Wade and Khalifa Sall. What do you make of this?
I think it's not a good thing for those who created this platform. Because, no matter what you can think of Khalifa Sall and Karim Wade, they should accept that at least, they are leaders, very, very powerful leaders. And because when you look at how the different parties are behaving at the National Assembly, I think it's a big mistake for those people who created this platform to set them aside.
There's this sort of debate around town that what will define inclusive election come February 2024 will only be determined or defined by Usman Sonko's inclusion.
Yeah, because, most analysis do consider that. For him not to be part of, when you look at what happened during the last MP's election and the mayoral election, how the opposition did for that election, mostly thanks to Usman Sonko. It means, there is a trend going forward with Usman Sonko on board. If he is not on board, so it means, there is something which will change.
Well, regardless of the absence of these two personalities that you've just talked about, will this platform, FITE, make or be of any significant effect in shaping at least the political scene 3 months before the elections in February 2024?
In fact, when you look at what happened with the other front, yes, we can be optimistic about the results, because it means all these leaders who are part of this platform, they will be, working hand in hand to make sure that this election is as transparent as it can be. And it's at least something very good for them. Because when you look at how things are unfolding right now, with the situation of one of them, which is Usman Sonko, who cannot even have his files to go for sponsorship. Those who are in charge of organizing the election does not show really some kind of tokens who can assure these people in the opposition side, what we call the radical opposition.
Now, with the sponsorship process going on now for majority of the candidates ahead of the polls, what should we be expecting?
Yeah, I think what we can wait for going into this the coming days with the Supreme Court or the decision coming day and the High Court of the ECOWAS. I mean, this will be very important things. I mean, I dare even dare say landmark going into election because most people are waiting to see what will be the fate of Ousmane Sonko. Because if he's not part of this election, it can be a political earthquake because we know what he represents.
Mamadou Cho is a Senegalese political analyst. It's now time for sports news with Sankule Janko.
Hello, very warm welcome and thank you for joining us. Reigning African champions Senegal kick off their FIFA Under-17 World Cup in grand style after a convincing 2-1 win against Argentina. Captain Amara Diouf inspired his side after scoring twice as the Teranga Cubs produced a spectacular performance. Diouf, who is tipped for greatness, scored in the 6th and 38th minute to take home the points. It was a contrasting result for Burkina Faso following their 3-0 defeat by France on Sunday evening in Jakarta. The West African side could not match the French youngsters during the course of the 90-minute. Second-half goals from Matthias Lambote, Joan Tinkres and Tidiane Gomis secured the needed points for the French side. Elsewhere, South Africa's Mamelodi Sundowns made history after they were crowned the first ever African Football League champions following a 2-0 second leg victory over Morocco's Wydad Casablanca. Sundowns were trailed 2-1 going into the second leg at home before turning the tie in their favor at the Loftus Versfeld Stadium in Pretoria on Sunday evening. A 2-0 home victory thanks to goals from Peter Salole and Aubrey Modiba earned them a 3-2 aggregate win to be crowned champions of the inaugural African Football League. And that's it for sports. It's back to you.
And with that, we've come to the end of this edition of a NewsLink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Mustafa Sek and Mamadou Diouf for the technical support. Do interact with us via social media platforms, X, formerly Twitter, Instagram at WADR News, and on Facebook, West Africa Democracy Radio English Service. We also stream live on WADR.org. Coming up at the bottom of the hour is Well Body, our health flagship program in English, and at the top of the hour is Info Shivu, our flagship news program. I'm Abdullahi Hassan. Good afternoon.
And many thanks to